Hey everybody, and welcome back to Mindbody Medicine for chronic pain. We are starting today with politics. Don't talk about politics, but I'm going to just a little because politics are so scary right now. And so I want to ask you, how are you feeling? How are you feeling? That is something that I encourage you to reflect on because like myself, I'm feeling a lot. My therapy clients, most people are feeling a lot, and there's a lot of fear. Um Personally, I'm feeling very scared. Like I'm feeling scared about many things. I like where do I even start? The fear of World War III, when you have the pundits on the news saying like, is this the beginning of World War III? Not sure yet. Only time will tell. Like that sounds to me like they're acknowledging that the answer to that is yes without saying yes. And since we are here to just acknowledge the truth and try to not be afraid of the truth, that is a shitty thing to hear. What an awful feeling. Um, this is important to acknowledge. Living in the age of nuclear proliferation is horrifying. If you're listening to this podcast, you are living in the age of nuclear proliferation. That's a hard reality to face. Like, that's horrifying. Knowing about the existence of nuclear bombs changes the experience of life on planet Earth. And here we all are in a reality where nuclear bombs exist. We all know it can feel good to not talk about it and not think about it, but that is feel good in deep air quotes. Because what happens when you don't feel your emotions? And when you fear your fears so badly that you can't feel your fear, what happens? You already know. Chronic pain, chronic symptoms, chronic conditions. You already know. So I get these fearful thoughts like mushroom clouds and blinding light flashes out my windows in Brooklyn because like the big one was just dropped right across the river in Manhattan. Like, yeah, I've got a lot of fear about that and I've got to feel that fear. And you know what? That might never happen and it might. And that's something that I think about. It's something that I fear. It's like a fear that's like out of my control, as most fears are. Like it's just something I'm afraid of. So, as we know, the nervous system reacts to these things, whether they're really happening or whether it's happening in the brain over and over and over again. Like there's some level of nervous system reaction. Obviously, when I have this fear, my nervous system is not reacting as though a nuclear bomb has literally been dropped like miles away from me, but it is having some level of reaction. We cannot walk away from that. We cannot deny that. That's real. When that image comes up again and again in my brain, my nervous system has a reaction to that. It happens. So, yeah, we got to feel it. We got to face it. Whew, we got to feel and face those fears. And it's I think it's kind of funny because when I'm like, we got to talk about everything on this podcast. Like, yes, that includes constipation, that includes diarrhea, that includes anal sex, that includes even a little bit of politics, and it includes nuclear warfare. We gotta face the facts about how scary and shitty it is to live on this planet. Um, and there are so many things to be afraid of politically right now. Like that's just one. Like depending on who you are and what identities you hold, like yeah, there are so many things to be afraid of. Like I have good friends who are immigrants and I'm like it's such a sick feeling. Like for me to like just stand here helplessly and like have the privilege I mean, like, obviously, it's nice to have privilege, but like it's a sick feeling. Like anti-immigration laws, ICE detention, and that is such a sick feeling to just stand by, like in horror, watching that fear and feel helpless. Like I don't know what to do. Because the perpetrator, like the perpetrators of this, like the ones who create the fear, this is not coming out of nowhere. Those are mostly white people. And I'm like, these are my people. Like that's my demographic. That's my community, if you want to call it that. And they're totally unreachable to me. Like, I have no idea how to get other white people to realize, like, please don't hate immigrants. Please don't think of them as illegals or aliens. Like, please don't see this country as a whites only segregational project, and like success means maintaining white cultural quote unquote purity, because like what does that even mean? Like the people who really like boldly uphold this ideology and use it to support white supremacist violence and fear through our government, like those people are completely unreachable to me. And I just feel so like hopelessly powerless about that, and like sitting with that hopelessness and that powerlessness, that's bad. I hate the violence directed towards trans people right now. The violence and vitriol, I hate it. I mean, truly unreal. Like that's my community right there. Again, that's my community. Like LGBTQIA plus, that's my people. And people like me, like the white cisgender gay men, like we're a little more like, some sort of tolerated by the mainstream. But LGBTQIA plus, we all rise together and we all fall together at the end of the day. Like we are a community, and we need to support each other across these differences. And like, can those who hate and fear trans people like literally just get over it? Like I'm asking, like, can people just move on? Like do a state of acceptance. Can you just move on? Or at the very least, can people just look away? Like, just look away. Like, all of us LGBTQIA plus folks, like, we don't need you to necessarily, like, celebrate us constantly or whatever. Like, just allow us to live our lives. That's good enough. Leave us the fuck alone. Respectfully, leave us alone. Please and thank you. And I can't not say this part. Like, I also just think the sheer number of Palestinian people killed over these last few years, and then over the decades, children killed, communities destroyed. Like, I cannot even imagine what it must feel like to live in Gaza. I cannot even imagine it. Ooh, even as I say that out loud, that's heavy. Like that. Oh God, that's heavy. Oh, feeling that. And okay, I'm also feeling, I just have to say this because I'm really feeling it. I'm feeling very hopeful that Zoran Mamdani won the Democratic primary for New York City mayor. Hell yeah. His platform is like really trying to like lower the cost of living in New York, which is such a day-to-day issue for me and for like everyone I know. And he aims to actually focus on like lowering the cost of rent, housing, transportation, childcare, groceries, and he's finally talking about getting the ultra wealthy to pay a little more in taxes so the communal pot is a little bigger and we can all benefit. And like, yeah, I'm really hopeful about that. So I'm feeling a lot. And my question to you is, what are you feeling? That's always the question on this podcast. What are you feeling? Make this about you. People are like, don't make everything about you. When you listen to this podcast, make this about you. Go ahead. This is about you. How do you feel about politics right now? Because you don't feel how I feel, and that's okay. That is okay. Make this about you. How do you feel about the state of the world right now? How does instability and change make you feel? Because you're probably feeling a lot too. Yeah, all of us. We're all feeling a lot. Yeah. Oh, and I'm just like, to whoever is out there listening to my voice, next time, before you and your strategists decide to launch another missile over Iran, set a timer. Journal speak it out for 20 minutes. Then do your 10-minute meditation. Then check in and attune to your true self and see if you really still need to launch that missile, right? And I know that sounds crazy, like literally crazy. I'm like, no one who does that kind of thing is listening to me or is doing this kind of work with us. But what if? What if? What if people dealt with their emotions productively? What the fuck if? Oh man. Okay. So that's enough of that. I encourage you to feel into that for you because it's important. So, today we have a great interview with a fellow queer mind body therapist. His name is Nyle Biondi, and it is so nice. You're going to like this interview. This is a good one. I say that for all of them, but that's because they're just good. They're all good. Um, in a world that's so nuts, it's so nice to talk to someone and find that you speak the same language. And I mean, like, I know about chronic pain healing, but hearing him talk the same way I talk is comforting to me. It helps further my certainty, my confidence in this healing work, my belief in this healing work. It helps further quell my doubts that still come up for me because yes, of course, there are times where I'm still like, but does this even work? And then I have to remind myself like, hello, look at your life. Look at your symptoms. Feel how much better it feels to be inside your body now than it did a few years ago. Obviously, this works. Obviously. And hearing Nyle Biondi talk to us is another great reminder. Obviously, this works. Allow this interview to do that for you as well. This is the stuff that works. Like people who heal from chronic pain and who help others heal from chronic pain, like this is the stuff that they do. These are the things that they talk about because this is the stuff that works. Okay. Niall's website, if you're curious about learning more about him, it's healingwithinpsychotherapy.com. That'll be included in the show notes. He also writes a Substack, which is awesome. I read a couple of them. It's good. If you're a Substack person, even if you're not, read Niall's Substack. It's good. He's on there at Queer Resilience, and I'm going to have the links to both of those in the show notes. Okay, hang in there. Feel your feelings in this unreal political moment. Feel your feelings, and without further ado, let's talk to Nyle. Okay, welcome everybody to Mindbody Medicine for Chronic Pain. I am here with an awesome guest, Nyle Biondi. Hi, Nyle.
Hello, Sean.
So glad you're here to join us today.
Yeah, so much for having me.
Absolutely. And we met because we were both friends, or at least professional friends of Deb Malkin, and we were both on her podcast. And Nyle is in this same world with us, doing chronic pain stuff. And so we're happy to have you here to talk today. So welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, I love talking about this stuff.
Same. So yeah, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do professionally, and certainly if you want to include anything you do personally, that's cool too. Why don't we start with that?
Okay, yeah, I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. I've been a therapist for nearly 20 years now. And I used to focus almost exclusively with transgender youth and young adults and, the general LGBTQIA population. But in about 2019, I shifted my focus to working mostly with folks with chronic pain as a result of my own healing journey with chronic pain. So that's what I do professionally. And then, for fun, I like to hike. I live in Colorado. I live in the foothills of Colorado. I love hiking. I've got a big landscaping project going on this summer, stuff like that, being outside, being out in nature.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Different from the New York City vibe, and I would love to come visit.
Yeah, you should. It's beautiful out here.
Yeah. And, it's funny, that's something that you and I absolutely have in common with, I mean, both of us are, like, part of the queer community, both of us have worked with the queer community, and my practice, very similarly, I worked with mostly, well, I mean, I did a lot of different jobs when I was working in, like, agencies, but with my private practice, I mainly did, like, attachment, relational work with queer clients, um, until finding this, and when I found this, I was like, "I wanna make this my thing," because it was so profound.
It's
Go ahead.
yeah, it's so powerful. I mean, you're helping people heal their bodies and all the rest of the stuff. Like you get to all the attachment stuff. Yeah, that's why I get so excited about it. I just feel like it takes people really deep, really quickly.
Yes.
Typically, when people come ready to do this work, they're like really ready to dive in. And that's always exciting for me. Just someone who's like, okay, I've tried everything. Let's go. um, yeah,
Absolutely. It is so motivating. There's when you're in pain and you wake up to the fact that, like, if I do emotional and psychological work that will heal my pain,
mhm,
then it's like a lot of people, certainly that was a story for me.
yeah.
It's very motivating. Suddenly it's like, all right, let's push through these defenses. Let's not beat around the bush anymore. Like, I'm in therapy to be in therapy. Let's go.
Yeah, well, and I feel like the body just guides you, and this process I find just it guides you in a different way. Like when I'm not focused on chronic pain with people, it feels harder to get at the issues. So I actually try to use kind of the same techniques that I use with chronic pain clients with other folks, just in terms of like doing the emotions based work, the anger work, the looking at where did you learn these that you needed to have these personality traits to be liked or to stay safe or those things. I just feel like it just gives us a different angle to sort of address these issues. And I don't know. I have the experience, I would assume you do too, of clients who have been in therapy for years who come in and they're like, oh, you just ask questions in a different way that are helping me sort of get to the root. It's just something about this process just guides you differently.
Absolutely. No, and isn't that funny? Like, because yeah, I mean, I I don't know, like, it sounds almost, like, weird in some way to be like, "Wow," like, as a therapist, like, I'm able to take people deeper than they've ever gone before. There's something about that that just sounds, like,
Right.
shady or something. Like I'm, like,
Those-
I don't know,
Yeah.
promoting myself in, like, a weird way.
Yeah.
But I've had the same experience for sure with clients who come to me for mind body work. I have absolutely had people say, like, this is going deeper than I've ever gone before." So
Right.
fully agreed.
Yeah.
Um this hold on, and let me just say for people listening, something that comes up a lot in this world, as you probably know, is the idea like, "I'm grateful for the pain," or "I'm grateful for the
Mm,
symptoms."
yeah.
And there are many different reasons why someone would feel that way, and there are obviously many reasons, especially near the beginning of the journey, why you would not feel that way because the pain and the symptoms suck. But this is one of at least I feel for myself, this is one of the core reasons why people end up feeling like they're grateful for the pain because of what Nile and I are talking about right now. Like, the pain is awful, period. And it also is an invitation to take you into deeper emotional work that you would never have gotten to, truths that you would never have discovered, kind of consciousness expansion that you never would have done
Yeah.
had you not had the pain. So, yeah, how does that land with you?
No, I agree. I mean, I feel like before I came to this work, I had a really good understanding of my own story. Like I got it intellectually, but this work like really pushes you into healing that. I think honestly, I don't think that I learned how to help people heal in grad school. I feel like I learned how to help people have more functional lives, and I learned how to help them understand their stories. But I think healing is
Mhm.
different from that. And for me, this was sort of my first clear path to like how you actually heal these things. And I guess what I mean from by that is not just having the understanding, but like getting to a place where you're not even like drawn to or driven to sort of enact the like people pleasing behaviors that maybe sort of got you there in the first place, or the perfectionism, or like you just get to a place where you've healed those things, and they loosen their grip. So you get to like be your full authentic self and decide what you want to do based on what you want to do, not based on this person might not like me if I say this thing or make this choice. And again, I'm not talking about like just becoming rude and totally self-centered. I'm just talking about getting to a place where you know what you want and need, and you're able to ask for it, and you're able to advocate for yourself, without all these fears of, people are going to reject me or not like me if I do these things.
1,000%. 1,000%. And how good does that sound for everybody listening, to get to a place where you're able to be yourself and take care of your own needs and not feel like that is self-centered, not feel like that's you're a horrible person. I mean, how good does that sound? Let's why don't you tell us a little bit about your journey? Because I know that you had your own symptoms. So whatever you do want to share with us, by all means, let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I'll start by saying I wasn't someone who had even identified as having chronic pain. Like it hadn't entered my mind that what I'm experiencing is chronic pain. I thought that chronic pain, like in my mind, that was like back pain or knee problems, or, just stuff that you hear, or fibromyalgia, stuff like that. But what I ended up getting diagnosed with burning mouth syndrome. I'm not sure that that's fully accurate, but I mean, burning mouth syndrome is in the mind body field. So I suspect
Right.
it manifests a little bit differently for everybody. But what it looked like or felt like for me was, one, you could see like my tongue would just be inflamed. I'd have like spots on my tongue. And it felt like I had paper cuts on my tongue all of the time. I would have said that I was
Right.
like at a level 7 on the pain scale most of the time. Um, and
Wow.
but like, yeah, like I said, I didn't think of it as chronic pain. And I don't even fully know when it developed. I've always had a condition called geographic tongue, which is just supposed to mean you get spots on your tongue once in a while. But at some point it turned painful for me, and I just sort of ignored it, which is common for those of us with chronic symptoms. We're like, I don't want to make a big
Right.
deal out of that. I don't want anyone to have to pay attention to me. So
Right.
for a long time it was on and off. And then when I moved to Colorado, that's when I started tracking it. That was in 2015. And just started noticing, okay, I've been here 2 weeks and I haven't had a day without pain. Now it's been 3 months, 6 months. It was finally at the 2 year mark. So there's like part of me just thinking that I like feel bad for my, self that thought I just had to suffer in silence for years before I started just like talking to my partner about it, mentioning it to friends, just being like, I have this thing, the doctors can't figure it out. Um,
Mhm.
and
Well, let me just say, as I'm just relating to this so deeply. For me, my biggest symptom imperatives have been hip pain and IBS. The hip pain came on like pretty acutely. The IBS was just like this.
yeah,
I can't remember like when did it exactly start. Like there are clearly times where I can look back and I'm like, oh, that was when it started sort of getting bad. But even then, I would look back and be like, but didn't I kind of always have this? Did I have this like on this day when I was in college? I'm pretty sure I did. Does that mean I had it every day? I don't know. Totally relating to this onset story, but yes,
right.
go
And,
on.
and for me, it was like I didn't want to inconvenience other people. I didn't want to seem like I was
Right,
someone who complained a lot. It was just like, yeah, you have a weird thing happening. Nobody can help you. Just deal with it. But I finally started talking about it, and that's when a friend, thank you, Olivia, introduced me to Nicole Sax's podcast, The Cure for Chronic Pain. And when I first listened to it, I was like, this sounds like bullshit, but I have nothing to lose, so I'm going to try it. And I don't know if you had this, Sean, where I was like, I'm a therapist. I have, there's no way I've repressed all of these emotions. I've dealt with my stuff. And then I
Niall,
started,
1,000%. Let's put a pin in that and get back to that.
uh, yeah.
Go on. We'll get back to that.
Yeah, and then I started doing the journaling, and I was like, "Oh shit, I haven't dealt with this story. I haven't dealt with the emotions. I haven't dealt with the
Yeah,
healing. I have, yeah,
yeah.
yeah." So that's kind of how I got into this work. And then as I was doing the journaling process, I experienced symptom imperative. So I started getting like twinges in my lower back that reminded me of when I had thrown my back out a bunch of times in my early 20s, which I haven't done since then. But, it was just like a clue, like, okay, something was going on during that time. What was it? And I had like flares of sciatic pain that I had had in my early 30s. And I was like, okay, another place to dive in. What was going on when I was experiencing that? Um, and so I've had a number of symptoms, that I didn't even realize were part of this, because I think most of us have these sort of mind body symptoms that are just purely generated by your brain, and we just don't know it. We're just like, oh, that's weird. I have this weird ache this week, and then it goes away. And I think most
Absolutely.
people experience it to some level, but they don't know what's going on.
Absolutely. And yeah, and let me just add to that. I have had so many symptom imperatives that I'll still get like flowing in and out.
Yeah,
The big bad ones, so to speak, have been the hip pain and the IBS, but like I mean, like, where do I even start with the list? One of the podcasts, I forget which one it was, but there was one I did where I listed my memory of like many symptom imperatives I've had. It's a lot.
yeah,
And that's normal. I want people to know like
for
that's
sure.
normal.
Well, right, and yeah, I just had a little bout of sciatic pain last week, and for me, it's always it's like my barometer. It's like my body saying, "Hey, buddy, you're not dealing with your emotions, or you're really stressed, and you need to handle this
Mhm,
differently." And so,
mhm.
like I feel the same way that my clients do, where sometimes I'm like, "Why do I have to do this all the time?" But I know that when I do, I feel better. So I really
Mhm.
too
That's
sometimes though, same as my clients do. Like I don't want to. I just want it to go away.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. 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 So right. So thank you for sharing all that. And let's go back to the idea of you know, I'm a therapist. I don't have repressed emotions.
Right.
I had this same I can literally remember having that. I remember like where I was walking and being like, well, I know that like some of this stuff applies to me, but the repressed emotion stuff, that's not it for me. Like it's just not it. Um, because I wouldn't have that because I'm a therapist.
We dealt with our stuff.
Right, and I just wanna say that was not true at all for me. I can tell, Nile, it was not true for you,
Yeah.
and,
Some nice
all of wait, say that again?
nice denial that we were both in. But yeah.
Exactly, exactly. All of us are gonna have reasons why we think that we don't have repressed emotions, because when the emotions are repressed, you don't know that they're there. And when you're fearful of emotions, your brain will come up with, and I mean, this must be happening like subconsciously. You're coming up with all kinds of rational reasons why you wouldn't have these feelings, why you shouldn't go into your feelings, why it's not worth it, why it's like not even relevant. But I'm telling you, both me and Nile are saying for us as trained therapists, it was necessary for us.
Yeah.
And if you're listening to this podcast, like with love, I'm telling you, it's necessary for you too.
Yeah.
I mean, do you agree with that, Nile?
Absolutely, and it feels better when you do it. It's like so scary at first. You're like, "I can't handle these big emotions," and then you start to do it, and you're like, "Oh, they're just sensations in my body, based on memories of things that I've already survived." It's like I've already been through the hard part. Now I just have to feel it and release it from my body.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And just to bring us up to now, like talk to us about your mouth now. Like how are you?
Good. Yeah. Like most days, no symptoms, but it's another one of those symptoms for me that's kind of a barometer where when it creeps up, I'm like, all right, there's something I'm not dealing with. Yeah, and for me, it's usually stress with when that one, like the sciatic pain. It was something very specific that I wasn't dealing with, and I didn't figure it out until I just like got still with myself and quiet and was doing some somatic tracking and things like that. And then I was like, oh, it's this thing. And as soon as I like let myself feel it and release it, the pain eased up. And it wasn't like immediately gone forever, but it let go in that moment, and then it was just like a little bit in and out for a couple of days, mostly not there, and then it let go. So yeah, I just bring that up because I think sometimes people have this sense that like it's just going to be one day, no more pain, but it's not really.
Mhm.
It is a process. But yeah, my mouth doesn't bother me probably 98% of the time, and when it does, it's just a sign that I'm stressed.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's really awesome. And I do think that's so important to recognize that like there will always like one of the things that Nicole Sachs talks about, which I really appreciate, is the difference between human pain and chronic pain. Like the way you're describing this, it's so clearly that you no longer have chronic
Right.
burning mouth
Yes.
syndrome.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, yeah, and I think that that's, I don't know. I mean, some people will have resistance to doing this work for so many different reasons. One of which is this, you know, where we're saying like most of the doctors will say like your pain and your symptom will be 100% cured, just do this or that protocol. And first of all, that doesn't work. It doesn't cure the pain.
Right.
And so what we're saying second is like this will cure the chronic pain. And yet you will always have to feel your
Yep.
emotions. You will still have, you know, maybe low level, maybe even high. Like I still get hip pain sometimes that's still bad. Sometimes like you'll still get low level symptoms. You might even sometimes still get high level symptoms,
Mm.
but that's life.
Yeah.
And you're still doing so much better. Like it is such a night and day experience from being in chronic pain to having just like blips of human pain that it's worth it. But like, what do you think about that?
No, I agree, and I think you're right. It's I like Nicole has a line something about some people feel their feelings in their hearts and some people feel them in their bodies, and I think
Mm,
that's true. It's like
yeah,
we feel them in our bodies. I mean, we're learning how to feel
yeah.
them in our hearts differently and better, but it's yeah. I think other people maybe get sad for a few days, whereas I have pain for a few days and, until I deal with it. You know, it's all it's the same stuff. We all have something. You know, we don't get to just live in peaceful, happy bliss all of the time. So
Mhm.
just sort of another way of learning how to roll with what gets thrown your way, so to speak.
This is what it feels like to be alive.
Right.
I think that's a really good quote. This is what it feels like to be alive.
See, it's like the trying to prevent physical and emotional pain is what actually creates it, in my opinion. You know, it's like
Yes.
parents who don't ever want their kids to feel anything bad
Yep.
really are doing their kids a huge disservice because then their kids grow up and they don't know how to handle things when they go wrong. And so, in some ways, it's
Mhm.
we just have to teach our nervous systems how to roll with things differently when they're not going our way.
That's it. Fully agreed. Fully agreed. Love that we're speaking the same language. Fully agreed.
Yeah.
So okay, so let's talk about this. The importance of identities.
Yeah.
So I know like you identify with the queer community, same Z's. And I know you sent me a message when we were planning this episode.
Yeah.
You sent me a message like, let's talk about queer specific TMS, which I'm like, yeah, let's talk about queer specific TMS. What talk to us. Talk to us.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think it's relevant. I mean, I see it show up in a number of ways. One, I think any marginalized population there's we have data to show us, you know, that marginalized folks do experience chronic pain at higher levels than the rest of the population. It makes sense. And you know, I think just working mostly with queer folks, that's the lens that I have and being a queer person. But what I see a lot is um people like one there's higher incidences of this in the queer community, but two, I think like sometimes people have spent so long trying to convince people that their pain is real and their diagnosis is real,
Mhm.
um,
Mhm.
that it's really hard to convince them that this work can work. And I don't know, but I wonder if that's almost even harder for queer folks who have also had to sort of prove their identities in other ways. You know, like
Mhm.
I'm trans. I'm pretty open about that. And a lot of us as trans people, and I think gay people too, any kind of queerness, like you almost have to prove that to people that you're like trans enough to justify the life
Mhm.
transition or the partnership or whatever. You know, there's a lot of like
Mhm.
you just fit in the way you were. And so I think like when you go through that, like trying to prove who you are in that way, and then also having to try to prove the chronic pain, I think it can be harder to like accept what the folks like you and me and folks in the mind body world are saying, that like we get your pain is very, very real. It's just that the solution is not in your body. It's, you know, we got to work with your brain and your nervous system, not your body.
Absolutely. No, that makes a lot of sense to me. And let me see if I can like make this make sense. I'm like trying to formulate this thought in my head. It's cool to hear you talk about like how feeling like that, like proving yourself has been like that's been a sticking point in your life. For me, I almost feel like almost the opposite, where like I spent so much time like trying to prove that I was not gay or prove that I was like straight.
Yeah.
And yet that has a similar outcome, even though the mechanism is more like me hiding my true self,
Yeah.
me suppressing my true self. And it still gets to the same place of like, I'm there's something wrong with me.
Right.
You know, I don't trust me. I don't trust myself.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's still like the safety is dependent on other people, right? Like if I have to prove my gender identity in order to be seen as valid, I'm still relying on other people to make me feel safe. And same with you, you know, you're like, maybe if I hide these parts of myself, I can feel safe. So I think that that is similar. And
Mhm,
as we both know, the long and the short of this work is getting to a place of realizing that you are safe, regardless of what
mhm,
people think about you. Um,
mhm,
and that is the work. That is some of the hardest work, is like really getting to that place where you know you're good, regardless of what
mhm.
people are saying about you or thinking about you.
Mhm. Absolutely, absolutely. And I'm glad you're bringing that up because I think that's an important thing for us to talk about, and I'm sure people listening will like resonate with this. You know, eh, many people with many different identities, I think, would probably resonate with this. I'll be interested to like see how people react to this conversation. But the idea of feeling safe is a hard one because, like, it's not it's not true that queer people are safe in all circumstances. Like, that's really not true.
Yeah.
It's not true that, people of color are safe in all circumstances. It's not true, certainly, that immigrants are safe in all circumstances.
Right.
You know, it's not true that, like, children are safe in all circumstances. Children in certain families are really not safe a lot of the time. Um So I wonder, like, yeah, talk to us about safety. You know, like, how do you negotiate that for yourself and with your clients? Like, talk to us about that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You bring up some very important and good points. Yeah. I think the context that I was talking about was mostly in like interpersonal relationships where you're thinking about, is this person still going to like me if they know this thing about me?
Mhm,
And so that's a different level of safety than like, are you being targeted and attacked in your home or at your place of work, or you know, threatened in some kind of way? That is, yeah, you're right. I'm not going to say that those people are safe and they just have to like get real solid inside of themselves. That would definitely be some bypassing there, or just yeah, denial of reality.
mm,
So in those contexts, I mean, I think when you're objectively not safe or facing difficult circumstances, you know, I think it's about figuring out, one, like, what do you need to do to be safe, but also like processing the emotions, like still doing that emotions work is very relevant and very helpful to your healing. You know, even if you're like in a hostile work environment, if you're dealing with your feelings every day, in my experience, in my opinion, you actually get to a place where it's easier to figure out what decision you need to make about that situation. You know, so being able to say like, okay, I've been journaling every day for 3 months now about how awful my workplace environment is. So maybe it's time to do something. Because I know Nicole Sachs talks a lot about how you don't actually have to make a concrete, you know, tangible change like that to get out of pain. And I think that that's often true. And sometimes as you're doing the emotions work, you realize that you want to make that change.
mhm,
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like that balance between dealing with the emotional aspects of it and then also looking at the facts of the situation. And if you objectively are unsafe, you know, trying to figure out, what do I need to do to
mhm,
establish some kind of safety in my life.
mhm. Absolutely, absolutely. And I think that's really important, the way Like, it's nice to hear you talk about how you delineate different like kinds of safety. Like there's like, you know, are you safe like politically? Are you safe on the street in every situation? Like, maybe the answer for many people is no, that you're actually not. And yet, like, are you safe interpersonally in your close relationships if you disclose this or that thing? I mean, it's a very different
Yeah.
question, and I think a challenging one. Like, I've certainly worked with clients, and I see this in myself too. Um, People identify with the hardships that they've gone through and the hardships that they are going through. And I've certainly, like I said, I've had clients who have had this kind of pattern, and I see it in myself, where it is very challenging to like it's a challenging statement to like explore, like, are you safe in this circumstance? Because if it feels comforting in some ways to be like, no, I'm not safe. I deal with this and that other problem, and I deal with my I don't even know the word for it. It's like my pain is real, but it's not really even, I wouldn't even say pain. It's like my emotional struggle is real, and it has been denied by people, and I refuse to let it be denied. I'm not going to deny it. So it can feel very challenging to move into a space where, like you're saying, sometimes you are safe. In some relationships,
Yeah.
you are safe.
Well,
I mean, what
I think, yeah, it's the distinction between discomfort and unsafety. It's like
yeah.
and this shows up with just like physical pain too. I'm sure you hear it a lot too. This sense of like, but I'm not safe. I'm in pain. It's like, well, yeah, you're in pain, but that actually doesn't mean that you're in danger. It just means that your brain is sending out a false alarm, and we need to figure out how to turn that off. But it doesn't actually mean that you're in danger. It does mean you're uncomfortable. I believe you that you don't like it, but you're actually, it's not dangerous for you to like be sitting in your chair right now, Sean. If you were telling me like, oh, but my back hurts, I'm not safe. That's what we would talk about. Well, do you think sitting in this chair right now is causing damage to your body? Okay,
Mhm.
no, then that means you're actually not in danger. You're in pain, you're uncomfortable, but you're not in danger. It's not dangerous for you to be doing the thing that you're doing. So, as you know, that's a lot of the work is helping people sort of distinguish between being uncomfortable and unsafe. And that's more what I was referring to with like the emotional realm. They're like, I don't like it when, I make people unhappy or when I have a sense that they don't like me, but it doesn't make me unsafe.
Mhm.
And it used to make me feel very unsafe and very uncomfortable.
Mhm.
It's gotten to a point where I'm just like, yeah, not everybody, not everybody is gonna like me, and that's okay. I'm not.
Mhm.
None of us are. It's
Yeah.
yeah, doing that work.
Yeah. And I really think that's one of the reasons why chronic pain healing goes so much deeper than the pain, is because one of the things we're doing is radically transforming our own relationships with fear. And fear holds us back so much from so many different things in life. And if you're able to tolerate fear and move through fear and move into doing the things you want to do that scare you, that I mean, that's a game changer.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. No, and you're right. And I remember fairly early on into my process just saying to my partner at the time, I just said like, shit, I spent my whole life thinking that I wasn't afraid of anything, and now all of a sudden I've realized that I'm actually afraid of everything. And just starting to realize how small I was keeping myself. Just contained. Like I didn't have big emotions. I didn't ever wear anything flashy. I still don't. But just thinking about like all the ways that I would just keep myself small and basically acceptable to others. These are the things that I know how to do that get people to like me and don't get me ridiculed or criticized.
Mhm,
And so
mhm.
I got really good at those things, and then I realized that I was mostly living my life for other people who didn't even know I was doing it. I had all these rules for myself that nobody else was enforcing, that were just making things challenging for me.
Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
Um, So let me ask you this. Talk to us about like integrating this work into like your professional work. I mean, it's funny to hear your story. It's literally so similar to mine, where you were a therapist, found this,
Yeah.
and then began doing this work as a therapist. I mean, literally same, same, same. Um, and the reason that it's important, I think, for us to talk about this here on this podcast is because like people come to this podcast surely for like advice and help, and they're dealing with symptoms and they're struggling and they're like, what else, what else do I need to do, what else do I need to know? So I'm curious, from your perspective, what are places where you see like your pain clients often like getting stuck and needing advice, and what do you find yourself like helping many people with, and like, what's the advice that you find people often need?
Honestly, I think that just getting started is the hardest part. I don't know if you've experienced this. I find that people who come to me to do this work are usually ready to go. They're ready to jump in. Whereas other folks that I see, almost all of them have chronic pain because most people do, but they're not very open to it. And it for me, it's been a skill to like learn how to present it differently. I used to just get so excited. I'd like almost be too in your face about it. I'd be like, oh, chronic pain, I can fix it. Repressed emotions, blah, blah, blah. And people would be like,
Mhm.
whoa, that's
Mhm.
that worked for you and some of the other people, but that's not what I'm dealing with. And so
Right, right. Again, for the listeners, I just want to butt it and say like, the natural defenses around these emotions, you can hear those coming in, the natural defenses, but we know that we need to push past that. But yes, go on.
yeah, so anyway, but, like, beyond the convincing somebody part, like, once they're into it, I think it's just I think the main things that I see are sticking with it. Like, often when people get a little bit of release, there's this sense of, like, "Okay, I'm done. I don't wanna keep going." But you have to keep going. But also, like, when they start getting relief, there's often this sense of, but why isn't it all the way gone yet? I've been doing this for 2 months now. So again, this is where I just think Nicole Sachs is such a good resource, and she has so many good, just like one-liners. She
Mhm.
talks about,
She does.
if it took you 30 years to walk into the woods, it's going to take you more than 2 months to walk back out. And so, reminding clients of that. I think honestly, I feel like the self-compassion piece is really hard for people. I almost present it as sort of the last step. It's a very necessary step, but people can't usually get there until they've like released some of the repressed emotions and identified why they've not been able to have self-compassion. The like, where did you learn to be so critical of yourself? Where did you learn that if you're not perfect, you won't be liked? Like, usually you have to go through that process before you can truly have compassion for yourself. So I think that is sometimes the hardest piece to get to. But yeah, I'm curious,
Yeah.
like, what would you say?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Well, okay. Honestly, like agreed with I mean, everything you said. Getting into it is certainly a challenge for a lot of people. And if, like this podcast is not for people who are not into it. I'm not trying to speak that language. You know what I mean? I'm like, if you're not into it,
Yep.
hopefully come back later and maybe you will be. If you don't need it, okay. If you do need it, come back later.
Yeah.
We'll see you later.
Right. Yeah.
um, but okay, yes. Once people are into it, fully agreed about sticking with it. One of the interviews I did in the last season of this podcast was with Christina Sarno Horner,
Yeah.
and she described, she was like, she's like, there's three parts to this work, which I always talk about on the podcast. Yes, there are three parts to this work, very similar to how Nicole talks about it, similar to how Dr. Dan Ratner talks about it, who's on the last season of the podcast as well. I think of it as like, there's the psychological work, part one, which is teaching your brain and your nervous system that like it is safe to be in your body and it's safe to feel physical sensations.
Mhm.
Then there's part two, which is the emotional work, which it's teaching your brain and your nervous system that it is safe to feel emotions. And then there's part three, which is like really patiently attuning to your true self,
Mhm.
which is teaching your brain and your nervous system that it's safe to be you.
Right.
And Christina was like, there's kind of 4 parts, which I'm like, okay, like,
Yeah.
go off. You know, there's kind of 4 parts. And she was like, if you're going to add a 4th part, the 4th part is sticking with it, which I totally agree because how many, people get a little bit better with a little bit of work. And I just know so many stories. I actually, thankfully, haven't really had clients who have had this experience, and like I haven't because I like won't allow myself to not stick with it. But I've heard many stories of people who, for example, I've gone to Nicole Sachs's Cure for Chronic Pain retreat twice,
Yeah.
and I've heard stories from people who like did the retreat, got a lot out of it. They started journaling. It worked for them, and they were starting to feel better, started to do well. Their symptoms were starting to come down, and then something happened. They had some kind of, the symptoms spiked up again, which is totally normal. That's how this goes. Recovery is not a straight line. And because they had some kind of symptom spike, or they had a new symptom imperative that was obviously another TMS symptom, but they didn't see it that way. And then they're back to the doctor, and they're back to the shots, and they're back to the surgeries, and they're posting on the groups like oh, this didn't work for me, now I have this, or this worked for 3 months, and but then it got worse. And so okay, so I went back, I got the, I got the injections, I got the whatever, I'm back on the supplements. And like, I just want people to know that that's part of the process, and you don't have to go back to the treatments that don't work.
Right.
This may not work in 3 months. It may not. It may take a while. Like for me, I've been doing this for 2.5 years. My hip still hurts more than I wish it did. Like, I don't really consider myself to have chronic. Like right now I'm sitting here, my hip feels totally fine. But like just a couple days ago, my hip was really hurting. Yeah, that's part of the process. So yes, I fully agree. Like sticking with it is really hard and really important. And okay, I've already said so much, but let me just add one more thing, which is like, yes, I also agree with you that doing the self-compassion work is so hard. I mean, the idea that like I am safe being myself, most people come to this chronic pain work really not believing that. And that's hard work to get to. But yes, what were you going to say?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It's like the staying convinced, it's like what you were describing. It's like people do the work, they start to feel better, but if the symptom like manifests a little differently, they're like, oh, there must be something going on. I need to go check in with a doctor. I need to get another x-ray or an MRI or whatever. And it's like bringing them back to, did that work last time? Like what do you already know from your last x-ray, from your last MRI? Do you think anything has really changed since then? Yeah, and just I think that part is hard, like for a lot of reasons. I mean, I also would love it if, a doctor had just said, "Oh, you just need to add this supplement and you'll never be in pain again." Great. But
Oh my God, if that fixed this, like we wouldn't be
right.
here. We wouldn't be talking about this. It wouldn't be interesting because it would just be like, oh yeah, just take the supplement and move on with life.
Right.
Whatever.
Yes, but we live in this culture that tells us if you have a physical pain, there's a physical solution. So I think when you're doing this work somewhat in isolation, maybe you have a therapist, maybe you have a good friend helping you, but everybody else is saying to you, why don't you go to the doctors? Or have you tried this treatment or that treatment or this or that? It gets in there, and then you just start to go, well, maybe I should try this. Maybe it is just something that was missed. So yeah, I think that's part of it too, is just coming back to I've already tried most of the physical things, and helping people get to that place of like, why don't you just keep going with this? 3 months, give it 3 months, see what happens. And if you want to go to the doctor again after 3 months, then so be it. But like, just trying to get people to commit to like, just do this process for a little while, see what happens.
Yeah. And so what I'm hearing is that Nyle is advising all who are listening to stick with the process, and I'm advising the same. Is that right?
Absolutely. Yeah, because it's most of us get to this work when we're at that, like, well, what do I have to lose kind of place. The doctors clearly don't have anything lasting for me, so I might as well try this emotional work, even though it sounds like nonsense, or whatever it is, even though it sounds
1,000%.
don't want to.
Right. Both.
Yeah.
Yeah, 1,000%. So yeah. So if you're listening and you're like, what if I just went back to the physical therapist? Maybe that would just finally solve the problem. What if I just, fill in the blank, whatever it might be. Did one more diet change, one more supplement, one more whatever.
Right.
If you're in that place, this is your message to stick with this.
Right. Well, yeah, and I know, like, we had talked over email about talking about food sensitivities and stuff.
Oh, yes. Yes. Okay. Yeah, let's get into that.
Because I
Do tell.
think I would say, like, probably a good 70% of my chronic pain clients have gone down a rabbit hole of, like, a food elimination process at some point.
Yep.
And I did
Yep.
too. Like, the mouth pain, actually, for me, it was because my kid got a stomach bug, and then I got it, and I basically didn't eat anything for 2 days, and my symptoms all cleared up, so I was like, "Oh, it must be a food sensitivity." But now I know what actually was happening was that my brain was focused on me being sick, and so it didn't need to give me these other symptoms, because being
Period.
sick was keeping me from having to feel my feelings. So
Yep.
so anyway, though, I spent probably 6 months on this food elimination rabbit hole, and I
I spent so much longer than 6 months.
that
But yeah.
you're like, "It must be something." But yeah, I would get to a
Right.
place where I'd be like, "Okay, it's this. This is the diet." And then I would
Yep.
have symptoms again, and I'd be like, "I must have eaten something that I didn't realize, or maybe now I'm responding to this." And, it's just all that, like, "Oh, it's this thing. No, it's that. No, it's this other thing." I have no idea what it is. But I got to a place where I told people I was basically on a fun-free diet. It felt like I was just eating
Yeah.
chicken and lettuce, and it was
Yeah.
like, I didn't wanna go to people's houses because I didn't wanna make a
Yep.
scene and just be like, "No, I can't eat any of this delicious food that you made for this party because I don't know
Mhm.
why I think that it's better if I don't." It's just like, it's just another way that it makes your life smaller. And
Yes.
what we know in the mind body world is that food sensitivities and allergies also fit into the mind body connection.
Mhm.
People don't often realize that. I mean, even like the definition of an allergy is basically your system is overreacting to a benign stimuli. And
Mhm.
so, just teaching people that you can teach your brain not to do that. Same with the food
Mhm.
sensitivities. You can teach your brain not to have these reactions.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And just, I mean, I'm just struck by, thinking of my own experience with this and what I've heard, what I know from working with clients. The amount of fear that goes into all of that,
yeah,
like not a single speck. Oh my God, if I have one little morsel of gluten that's quote unquote cross contaminated from
right.
something else, if the same cutting board that was used for the sandwich was used for my, gluten free, whatever, my day will be ruined. Maybe my week will be ruined. Maybe that morsel will stay in my system for 6 months. Oh God, I have symptoms now for 6 months because of,
Right.
whatever one.
Yeah.
It's so much fear,
Yeah.
so much fear. Like, and if you get symptoms from that thing, yeah, you're getting the symptoms because there's so,
Right.
so much fear there.
Right, right. Yes. Yeah, just a quick review for anybody newish to this. Like, that fear tells your brain that you're in danger, and then your brain sends out a danger signal that can be any number of things. Like, any danger signal that your brain can send out, it can also send out in error. So, the symptoms like IBS, allergies, pain, dizziness, those are all danger signals that your brain can send out, and therefore can also send out an error.
That's right. That is absolutely right. You're speaking our language. We're all on the same page. Let me ask you about this. We've got a little bit left before we round out for the interview. Um, I want to go back to the self-compassion thing because that is huge. That has been by far the hardest thing for me when I had my own TMS therapist. That was basically the bulk of the work was like tuning into like who am I? Like who is myself? And from there it's like wow, so that is the person. Those are all the parts. That is the entity that I am supposed to be kind to. Okay, got it. I mean, that is just that for me has been such a hard journey. And I know with working with my clients, that is hard. It's hard to put it into words that will land and that people will understand like what self-compassion really means. And I think that's particularly interesting, like coming from a queer perspective where it's like the self often is like in hiding, or the self is like the bad self, or the self is not believed, the self isn't taken seriously. So any perspective you have on like doing self-compassion work that would be helpful for people listening would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah. I think for me, I sort of encourage people in a couple different areas. One, I think for a lot of people, it happens naturally after the journaling process. Like if you do the anger journaling, you get the anger out. And then often it turns into self-compassion. I hear a lot of people talking about, they get out all the rage, they're like, fuck you for this and this and this. How dare you, blah, blah, blah. Like you get that,
Mm-hmm.
purge those feelings out. And then it kind of turns into like a comforting that younger you, that like, I'm so sorry that you went through this stressful situation and you didn't feel like anybody had your back, or, you were all alone in this situation. And just starting to say the things to your younger self that you needed to hear at that time. So I think that's part of it. It's almost like a reparenting of yourself in those moments, just being able to say,
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm sorry you were so scared and there was nobody there to comfort you. I've
Mm-hmm.
got you now. So that's part of it. But I think it's also sometimes for me, it's just throughout the day when I notice that I have a lot of tension in my body, I just like, I'll either notice myself in this like, go, go, go. I got to hurry, do everything fast. I'm in a big rush for everything. I'm so stressed, just like stop
Same, for no reason. My life is not that
for
important.
no
And
reason,
same.
right? And you're like, actually, it's fine if I leave the house in 5 minutes to like go to my
Right.
friend's house. It's gonna be fine, But just for me, it's just like recognizing that and slowing down. I always put my hand on my heart first. That activates the same part of your brain that gets activated when you're getting a hug, and so it tends to have a soothing effect. And so from that place, I just sort of say to myself, like, "You're okay, buddy. Just slow down. You can take your time. It makes sense that you're stressed today. Anybody in your situation might be feeling stressed today, but you're okay. You're gonna get your stuff done as you get it done, and it's gonna be okay." Um, so that's part of it, and then I think also the like really loving yourself for who you are and learning how to like assert yourself, learning how to advocate for yourself, learning how to set boundaries, and being really compassionate towards yourself about that, like really reminding yourself it's okay for me to ask for my needs to be met. It's okay for me to say no to going to my friend's party, even though I think I might hurt their feelings, like just
Mm-hmm.
getting to that place where you can be really okay with what you're doing. The last place though that I see it show up a lot is when people are trying to accomplish certain tasks and they get into that like, hurry up, get this done, why aren't you done yet? Or like, your friend is
Mm-hmm.
finished with this thing and he did it much better than you, like those types of voices that are just there. So teaching people how to stop and just say, reframe it to, you're going to get this done when you're going to get it done, and your friend finished first, but that's okay. That's
Mm-hmm.
it's not for you to worry about. And just coming back from those sort of critical, negative, bullying kinds of messages, and learning how to like almost coach or cheerlead yourself through something. I think a lot of people believe that self-bullying, that self-criticism motivates them. But we actually have
Mm-hmm.
data and research that shows us that's not true. That criticism, even when it's self-criticism, lands in our body as stress. And when we're stressed, everything is harder, but it also gets us in those fear cycles, which brings the pain back on.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's just like getting out of that critical voice and for me, sometimes it's imagining what would I say to my child or a friend if they were in the
Mm-hmm.
situation, and it's never the stuff that it was just sort of
Right.
automatically happening in my head. I would never say those
Right.
things. I have a 9-year-old. I would never say those things to her. Um, her little face would just like melt and like crumble.
Right. I love that visual because, like, for people listening, like, treat yourself that way,
Yeah, right.
Treat yourself with that compassion. Care about that your little internal self's face
Yeah,
would crumble if you talked to yourself that way.
yeah. Don't do that to your little self or your big self.
Absolutely.
Right.
Right, yeah, no matter what size, don't do it. None of us can handle it, no matter who we are.
Yep. Yep.
I love that. Thank you so much for that, for sharing that. Um, and I wanna say that, being kind to yourself even includes the critical part of yourself, you know, like what Nyle is saying about like be be kind, like that includes be kind to the critical parts of yourself. Like they are there for a reason. And so if you're noticing that critical voice, how easy would it be? Which, I mean, I notice that. I wonder how many times a day I notice that for myself. A lot. How easy would it be to let that become another place of fear and another place of activation and another place of threat? Like, oh God, now I'm talking to myself in a mean way. I'll never recover.
Look at this, right? Yeah.
Right.
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 Yeah.
And like, that's okay.
Yeah.
That is okay. We can be kind to the critical parts of you too, because that is important too.
Yeah. And for me, it like comes to, again, like the hand on the heart and just going, it's okay. You learn to be really critical of yourself to stay safe. And you're just learning how to not do that anymore. And it's okay that you just caught yourself in a 10-minute, you know, self-critical spiral. Now you can walk yourself out of that.
I love that. Well, okay, let me ask you this. You know, obviously you are a professional. You do this with your clients, same as I do. And like you do this for yourself, you know, and that is just again, same as I do, which is like that is really powerful. So I wonder, as we're closing out, what words of encouragement do you have for people who are on this path, as someone who is on this path and who's doing well? Like you're in a place where like your symptoms are you're good.
Yeah.
What words of encouragement do you have for people?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just the stick with it, have patience and kindness, and just like remember that it's a process, that it is going to take time, and that you can do it. And I think also just like start where you are. You know, if the emotions work feels scary, then you start there. You start with how scary that feels, and then you wait until you feel ready to do the next step. And so it's sort of this combination of like, you know, like I don't want to like shove someone off the high dive into this work, you know, right away.
Right.
It's also
Right.
we don't want to stay in the kiddie pool forever, right? So it's like let's dip our toes in, see how that feels, and then let's start heading towards the deeper waters and sort of just taking it, you know, like figuring out what you need to go a little further, and not judging how long it takes or how quickly you're moving through it. Just being patient and sticking with it and finding support. Honestly, I think for me, I had a colleague of mine, like we would sort of bounce ideas off each other. I would say like, oh my gosh, this big thing came up for me. And, you know, she was having similar things happen. And it just helped to have that like kind of support group of like, okay, yeah, we're doing this hard thing together. So whether it's a therapist or a friend, I think finding somebody to kind of do this work with is really helpful.
Great advice. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Thank you. Thank you for sharing all that. Super inspiring. And let me end by asking, where can people find you? You know, say people are listening to this and they would like to work with you.
Yeah.
Talk to us. Where can people find you?
Yeah. So I've got a website. It's healingwithinpsychotherapy.com. And then, I started a Substack it's just called Queer Resilience. I think if you just go to Substack and type in like at Queer Resilience, you can find it. But yeah, I started that in January, just sort of in response to what the administration has been trying to do to trans people. To like try to offer hope to folks. I try to offer a little bit, you know, like little tidbits of healing or, you know, tips, like concrete, tangible tips that people can use. This week I'm focusing on actually getting some guest posts from parents of trans people and also parents who are trans. I was inspired by Father's Day and Pride Month. It's like I want to hear from parents about these things. But yeah, normally it's just like little tips about healing and resilience, things like that.
That, I mean, hey, that sounds fucking amazing. Queer resilience. I mean, couldn't we all use more of that? And I mean, also like that is who queer people are, you know, like we are resilient. I love what you're saying.
Yeah. Good deal.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Yeah. So healing within, say the website again.
Yeah. Healingwithinpsychotherapy.com. It's
excellent. And that'll be in the show notes as well.
Okay. Great.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on. This has been super fun. And for everybody listening, this is Mindbody Medicine for Chronic Pain, and I will plan to see you next week.